Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into Chapter 11 of Bacha Khan's autobiography, specifically looking at his time locked up in Dera Ghazi Khan prison. It's fascinating because this incredibly harsh, unforgiving environment actually acted as a crucible. It literally forged this unexpected cross-cultural unity and just a fierce, unbending defiance against British authorities. I may even lose my head, but I will not lose my Sikh faith. That powerful chant frequently echoed through those cold prison halls, and man, it perfectly captures the unyielding spirit of the inmates Bacha Khan lived alongside. It absolutely sets the tone for everything we're looking at today. So let's get right into Section 1, Brotherhood Behind Bars. Inside these incredibly bleak walls, Bacha Khan actually describes finding a really warm, totally unexpected community forming among the Hindu, Sikh, and Muslim prisoners. Despite the awful conditions, they spent their time pretty pleasantly together. And, being in close quarters like that really brings out people's quirks. Like Bacha Khan grew quite fond of this Hindu teacher named Gurdat Tamal. Now, Gurdat Tamal would walk around chanting Shanti, 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 meaning peace. But the funny thing is, that didn't make him a peaceful guy at all. Bacha Khan noted he would just comically lose his temper at the absolute slightest provocation. It's a great little reminder of the very real, relatable humanity in these historical accounts. And observing all this led to a really brilliant realization for Bacha Khan. You see, he noticed the Sikh prisoners showed a much deeper, genuinely emotional connection to their prayers. Why? Well, because their holy book was written in their mother tongue. They truly understood what they were reciting. In stark contrast, Hindus and Muslims were praying in Sanskrit or Arabic, and since most of them didn't actually speak those languages, they were often just reciting prayers without grasping the underlying meaning. Moving on to Section 2, Dispelling Cultural Myths. This shared living space didn't just foster religious discussions, it actively shattered the false impressions the British had intentionally sowed between these groups. By living together day in and day out, they finally started seeing past the propaganda. And to show you just how wild these misconceptions were, get this. A Hindu fellow prisoner actually walked right up to Bacha Khan and asked him, point blank, do Pathans drink human blood? I mean, no way, right? The guy had never met a Pathan before Bacha Khan. He had just read this wildly absurd claim in a book and assumed it was absolutely historical fact. Now, instead of getting angry or offended, Bacha Khan just deadpans this incredibly funny response. He says, oh yes, frequently, because it is very tasty. He used this sharp comedy to highlight the absolute ridiculousness of these engineered cultural myths. After totally shocking the poor guy, he then calmed him down and explained the truth, pointing out how easily they'd all been manipulated by things they simply read in British-approved books. But, as you can probably guess, that lighthearted atmosphere wouldn't last forever. Let's look at Section 3, Defying Unjust Orders. The mood in the prison vanished completely when the notoriously rude Inspector General of Prisons, Colonel Wade, showed up. According to Bacha Khan, this guy acted as if he were the Almighty himself. So let's track how this rapidly escalated. When Wade spotted Hindus wearing Gandhi caps and Sikhs wearing black turbans, he went absolutely ballistic and banned them outright. The prisoners immediately refused to comply. When a deputy commissioner came to argue with them, the Sikhs literally shut him down with a roaring chant of defiance. In retaliation, magistrates hauled the defiant Hindu and Sikh prisoners to court and slapped an extra 9 months onto their sentences. The crux of all this defiance was perfectly articulated by Sardar Kharak Singh, who really led the charge against the deputy commissioner, Mr. Wilson. He laid out this rock-solid logical argument. He said, look, we are special class prisoners. We are legally allowed to wear our own clothes. So you can't just arbitrarily decide that caps and turbans don't count as clothes. The order was fundamentally illegal. And that logic fueled an incredible prisoner strike. When guards tried forcibly removing their headgear, the prisoners escalated things by stripping down to absolutely nothing but loincloths. Now, Bacha Khan didn't even normally wear a turban or a Gandhi cap, but he still offered to strip down and join them in solidarity. But the others actually respectfully declined his help. They insisted that since this was specifically about their cultural headwear, the protest was purely a Punjabi affair. It really shows the deep mutual respect they had for one another while standing their ground against the administration. Which brings us to a much more somber part of our explainer, Section 4, The Price of Resistance. While the prisoners stood incredibly strong together, the personal isolation and the mental toll of being a C-class prisoner weighed heavily on Bacha Khan. The severity of his isolation was just absolute. He was permitted to write exactly one letter
and receive visitors exactly one time, every 3 months. Just think about that. Once every 90 days, he was allowed to connect with the outside world. But during those rare visits, the sparse news he did get was pretty incredible. He found out his political movement was actually booming in his absence. And do you know who was championing it? His own 9-year-old son, Ghani. Little Ghani was out there making impassioned public speeches to crowds, and he would always end with this powerful demand. "Oh, people, go and ask this government why they are keeping my father a prisoner." It's just amazing to think of a 9-year-old carrying that immense torch.
Unfortunately, the absolute cruelest blow of his entire imprisonment had nothing to do with the jailers at all. It was the tragic fate of his elderly mother. She desperately wished to visit her son, but Dera Ghazi Khan was incredibly far away, and she was simply too old to survive that arduous journey. Bacha Khan actually had to write and tell her not to come for her own safety. Tragically, in late 1920, she fell ill and passed away while he was still locked inside. Because of his extreme isolation, Bacha Khan only learned of her passing weeks later, completely by chance, from reading a newspaper. He was utterly devastated. And honestly, it gets even more heartbreaking. After he was finally released, he found out from his sister that his mother had died with these final words on her lips. "Where is Ghaffar? Has he not come back yet?" She passed away literally calling his name, wondering when he would return.
But Bacha Khan does not let this tragedy break his spirit. Upon his release, he transforms that immense personal pain into this legendary speech at his school's anniversary. He steps in front of thousands of people and challenges them directly with one question: are you sheep or are you lions? It really leaves you wondering, how exactly will this story of the lion and the sheep ignite the next massive phase of his struggle? Well, what do you think? We'll be answering that in our next explainer. Thanks so much for joining me today, and keep learning.